Hello and good evening to everyone here at the Leicester and watching us streaming live on YouTube. Nice to see all of you. I'm Carolina DeReich. I'm the morning host of your CBC Current Affairs program, Daybreak North, and I'm thrilled to see so many faces joining us tonight who are engaged in this election. Tonight we'll be hearing from a slate of diverse and I think courageous individuals who I also think love Prince Rupert. Because it's not an easy thing to put up your hand to lead a community, especially at such a momentous time. Prince Rupert has great things ahead, and tonight we all have the opportunity to learn how this slate of candidates intends to maintain the momentum. Before we begin tonight's events, it's important to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of the Smalyak-speaking Tsimshian people, and we are thankful to them for providing this space to us today. As you can see, we're joined on stage by mayoral and council candidates, and they will all have an opportunity to give their first introduction in just a moment. But I also want to introduce KJ Miller from the Northern View, who is one of our panelists tonight, as well to the BC Northern Real Estate Board as a sponsor for this event. So here are the rules. Each candidate will receive 1 minute to make it their opening statement, starting with Mr. Fitzpatrick and working through all the candidates in alphabetical order. Candidates, you're not allowed to interrupt one another. My job tonight is to herd the cats. During the Q&A period, questions will be posed by KJ Miller and by myself. And answers to those questions will be limited to just 30 seconds. To ensure as wide a discussion as possible, each candidate will have a turn to answer. You'll also find in front of you there a rebuttal card that allows you to give a 30-second response or rebuttal to a question. But there's only one rebuttal allowed per question. Then we'll have 1 minute for closing statements, and we'll try to maintain that alphabetical order. We'll also be taking some questions from the public as well. I know that some of you were writing down questions at the front there. I'll be receiving those in about 45 minutes or so, and we'll see how many we can get to tonight. So, without further ado, let's begin our introduction of candidates. 1 minute per candidate, starting with mayoral candidate Stephen Fitzpatrick.
So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Stephen Fitzpatrick. I've been a resident of Prince Rupert for 30 years. I came to this town with my wife, who was a social worker, back in '93, and I've been involved in politics pretty well much of my life. I studied political science in university, majoring in local government. I also sat on I was vice president of our student council of Memorial, which represented 17,000 students. I was also on the board of directors for the Canadian Federation of Students. I also sat on an advisory committee for education that reported back to the Ministry of Education. And then I came to Rupert and I worked at the co-op and I got myself elected to the union board of directors for UFAW Local 2000. I worked at the pulp mill for approximately 10 years. And then I got involved in politics locally. I ran for council twice in 2003, 2005. After the 2005 election, I was approached by a group of people who wanted to start an anti-poverty society. And that's when the Canadian Anti-Poverty Society was born, and if I'm not mistaken, it's still functioning today. Very proud of that. Outside of that, I've got some great ideas, and I'll just list off my basic...
I think that we have hit your time limit of 1 minute.
Oh boy, okay.
We'll have to circle back to it when we get to our questions. Our next mayoral candidate, Jason Huang.
Good evening, everyone. Family, today. Everything I want to talk to you about today is about family. My family, your family, and the families of the future. We need bold action and creative vision to make Prince Rupert beautiful and unique as a citizen. Today I will prioritize safe neighborhoods and stable supporting housing for all while restoring and beautifying our town. I will invest in the future by spending youth programs in recreational and training jobs so that way our youth could love it to live here just as much as I do. My business background is in a variety of industries, including fishing, transportation, hospitality industries, which make me really unique and qualified to advocate for Prince Rupert small businesses. 2 decades of experience in world-class athlete, championship coach level will for me to create a more exciting future for our youth. And I'm honored to finally take the next steps into public service and to collaborate with our local leaders and finally and our council members.
Thanks, Jason. Our next mayoral candidate, Herb Pond.
Smoigit, Simgigit, Sigamanana, Lakagiget, Kabawalse. I'm a goat, way. We need to keep moving forward. The Fairview Container Terminal revolutionized our economy, and thanks to the workers at the terminal, we're now a world-scale seaport at a first-class railhead. That's the only reason that we've had the massive investments from DP World, AltaGas, Pembina, Gatleedom, Quick Load, and on. Thousands of people employed in highest wage jobs. But the community has struggled to keep up. We know the challenges, housing, roads, water. The question is, who knows how to work with council to get things done? I'm Herb Pond, a tenacious Rupert booster and 2-term mayor. After Fairview's launch, I stepped away from public life to focus on my family, just like Mayor Brain is doing now. If we build on his work and the work of this council, even in the face of brewing storms of inflation, interest rates, global recession, we can catch the community up to the success of the terminal. We can, we must, we will keep moving forward.
Thank you, Herb Pond. And our final mayoral candidate, Christopher Thompson.
Hello, my name is Christopher Thompson, and my Tahltan name is Kaget. My clan is the Crow, and my crest is the Frog. I was born and raised in Prince Rupert, and I've worked in education for 13 years. The last 3 school years I've been at Pacific Coast Alternate School, and working there has pushed me to want to make lasting systemic change for good. My biggest concern for Prince Rupert's future is housing. We're in a housing crisis Canada-wide, but we have in Prince Rupert, it's even worse. So a healthy housing market has around 5% vacancy. We have closer to 1% vacancy. So we're in desperate need of all kinds of housing. More housing development will not only help the people who currently live in Prince Rupert, but also the people who are expected to be moving here as the city grows according to the projections. I'm a data-driven person and follow the numbers to make my decisions. Prince Rupert has seen hard times before, and we can get through this housing crisis the same way we made it through hard times in the past. Together.
Thank you very much. And moving on to our council candidates. 1 minute for opening remarks. We'll begin with Nick Abey.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming up. I'm proud of the work that council has done since I was first elected. I'm encouraged by the 2030 plan, the official community plan that resulted, and the bylaws that have been designed to help achieve the vision. I'm also proud of the work we've done to forge productive, mutually beneficial relationships with First Nations, and the work that I've done to address issues raised by individuals and community groups. I know that addressing challenges such as infrastructure, housing, and inequality is not quick or easy, but I believe we have a plan and a team in place that can help us succeed in meeting them. Together, we can drive the community forward to a bright future. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick Abey. Our next council candidate, Andy Chug.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, and moderator, my name is Andy and I'm running for City Council because I have a vision. A vision that the Prince Rupert of tomorrow will be better than the Prince Rupert of today. A vision that future generations can look back and be proud of the decisions we made, rather than having to rectify our mistakes. I'm a major proponent of the Hayes 2.0 plan and Rupert 2030 vision, and I think the current mayor and council have done an incredible job addressing past issues and laying the brickwork for the future. But we're now at a critical juncture. Either we can move forward or be sucked back into the past. We need tangible action. As the inheritors of today's decisions, I believe that my generation should have a voice in our own future. If elected, I'll bring a fresh, more youthful perspective to politics, presenting innovative ideas to a changing world. I will focus on the principles of affordability, critical infrastructure, recreational access, sustainability, economic development, downtown revitalization, and reconciliation. I look forward to the debate and wish my colleagues the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy Chug. Our next council candidate, Barry Cunningham.
Hi. As you know, I'm Barry Cunningham. I've been on council for up to 9 years now, and I hope that you can see what I can do and what I have done. I'm strong on health care. I'm strong on housing, and I believe in the enforcement of our bylaws that are starting to happen. but I take very serious interest in anything that comes before council. I believe that this council accomplished great things and there's great things to come. But I also understand the challenges that lay ahead of us. I'm passionate about Prince Rupert. I believe in the 2030 plan, but I also believe in housing projects, bylaw enforcement, and in helping anyone who builds or improves their properties, or anyone with different problems. A lot of people come to me and I help them navigate through City Council. So I'm looking forward to your support for one last time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barry Cunningham. Our next council candidate is Terry Forster.
Hey everyone, my name is Terry Forster and I use the personal pronouns she, her, and hers. I'm a nurse here in the Northwest and I represent nurses all over the province when I speak on our board. I work at the Prince Rupert Hospital and I've been lucky enough to serve many of you in a lot of different ways. I've decided to run for council because I'm excited about the plans that our city has worked hard to develop, and I hope that everyone else is as excited as I am. But what I found is that a lot of people don't really understand what they mean, and I want to help people understand because transparency and accountability are really important to me. If you elect me, I will be your voice. I won't promise you things I can't deliver, but I will find out the answers to the questions you have. So please join me and the rest of the council in creating a better future for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry Forster. I'd like to introduce now Sheila Gordon-Payne.
Thank you. Boy, it's been a tough few years we've just been through, and what I see now is a city that is re-emerging, finding its feet again, and ready to work hard to make our community the place we want it to be, both for locals to stay and for newcomers to want to live here. I think we have 5 key things to address. I think the first is community plans. We need to make sure everyone knows what's in them and get moving with priorities. The second thing is the budget. Let's work together with stakeholders in the government to make sure we get our fair share. Third thing is healthcare. Not only let's keep our services at the level they're at, but let's increase access. Number 4, child-friendly. That means childcare spaces and schools that rock. Number 5, sustainable culture and recreation, not only for those of us that live here, but those of us that might choose to come or visit here. I'm not from Prince Rupert. I came here after I'd been across Canada, chose to live here, choose to stay here, and I'd like others to as well.
Thank you, Sheila. Our next council candidate, Wade Niche.
Good evening, everyone. For those who may not know me, I am Wade Niche, married to Maria, father of 3 daughters. I'm a self-employed building contractor for the last 14 years. I am seeking re-election for a 3rd term to continue hard work that has been accomplished during the last 2 terms. Although we may have come a long way, there is still much more to accomplish. This has never been a fun job, but I have always enjoyed helping set a new path. My work ethic and commitment is unwavering, as I've only missed 1 meeting in 8 years. And I will point this out was because my wife made me go to Disneyland. I wish to continue making hard decisions to set us up to be a community that can house and support the current and future growth of this community. I would like to thank Lee Brain and Blair Moreau for their commitment for the last 8 years, wishing them well and for raising their families. I know it is tough as I have raised my kids through this journey and missed important times with the family to be there for the city of Prince Rupert and the citizens within. Thank you.
Thank you, Wade Niche. Our next council candidate, Gurvinder Randhawa.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gurvinder Randhawa. 29 years ago, I moved to Prince Rupert. This is where my wife, Sarjeet, and I raised our 3 children. This is where I became part of the business world. This is where I learned about the value of giving my time and leadership to the community that welcomed me. I have served on the boards of Tourism Prince Rupert, Post Mountain College, and I also Post Miners Officer. 8 years ago, I decided that I wanted to see values that are important to me on our city council, and I have worked hard on your behalf, and I'm ready to keep working. I want to continue supporting policies that attract new economic opportunities and develop our comprehensive plan to replace aging city infrastructure. I want to continue mutually beneficial relations with First Nations and our neighboring communities. I want to continue to make Prince Rupert more affordable by limiting property tax increases while developing other sources of tax revenue. These priorities are improving our quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurvinder. And our final council candidate introduction, Reed Skelton-Morvan.
Thank you. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Reed Skelton-Morvan. I'm a local business owner, current city councillor. And I probably keep busier than is healthy, that's for sure. I think I can share that with a lot of my colleagues. For me, I kind of immediately think of not really taking this opportunity as a sales pitch, really, or a political kind of platform. I think for me, it's just kind of acknowledging each and every one of you for your resilience and over these past couple of years. Kind of halfway through our term, we obviously experienced the derailment of the COVID-19 pandemic. Many of us have lost friends and family members and all of those others. So I guess for that, I even just want to think about those at home that are still kind of dealing with that grief and some of those challenges. For me, I mean, these past few years have been really, really character building, but we've also had opportunities to allow for growth and reinvestment. For me, I try to look at the world with an enterprising lens of opportunity, and relationships start first and foremost when we show up. So for me, showing up at different events like the FCM, allowing for different approaches to our infrastructure, and different items like that. So for me, I look at those opportunities, and again, I'm just really grateful for the support of the community, and I'm very appreciative, and I just, again, want to acknowledge each of you in the audience and those of you at home for working their way through this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all of those introductions. We can now move on to the second part, and that is a question and answer period. The questions will come from me, and once again, I'll remind you that you each have 30 seconds to respond. This time we'll start at the end, and we'll move this way towards me. So we'll start with Reed Skelton-Morvan. And if you do want to rebut, please make sure to raise your hand with your rebuttal card and make eye contact with me, and I will note that, and we'll go to the rebuttals at the end. So the first question for tonight is around housing, something that we've heard a few times tonight come up already. The BC government has published roadmaps for addressing issues of housing and affordability. If elected, what measures will you adopt to streamline approvals, fast-track developments, and bring more housing supply to the market? We'll start with Councillor Reed Skelton-Morvan.
Thank you very much for the question. I've obviously taken a bit of a stance on housing, especially the building of affordable housing in our neighborhoods, because we have a huge need of like 3,000 units in the next 10 years. The immediate things I think of is the stuff that we've done already. We've developed anything from a 15-point housing action plan, as well as putting in policies and frameworks to help encourage and foster further developments, streamlining our approval and development process from anywhere from 6 to 12 months with deferrals and all of those things and complications that come in between to now to a 1 to 3 month process. So I immediately pick up those points.
Thank you very much. 30 seconds goes by really quickly.
That it does.
To our next council candidate, Gurvinder Randhawa.
So we have 15-point housing plan which cover most of their recommendations.
Can you grab your microphone a little closer there, Mr. Randhawa?
So we have 15 points housing action plan which cover most of the recommendation, but again I would like to see their 5 calls to action, especially on number 35 their local governments offer density bonuses to affordable housing developers that receive federal and provincial construction and redevelopment funding. These bonuses could be depending on longer term or deeper affordability.
Thank you, Mr. Randhawa. I'm sorry to cut you off. We go next to Wade Niche. If you're elected, what will you do to streamline approvals, fast-track developments, and bring more housing supply to the market?
We've already put in place many different things right now. Your basically permits cost nothing, development permits cost nothing also, and bylaw zoning changes are at a cost of nothing right now. Also, I've been really pushing for a way to get rid of muskeg. Muskeg is our problem in this town. If you can get rid of muskeg, and these guys make fun of me, they've been calling me the muskeg farmer. I've been pushing for a place to get rid of muskeg. That is our biggest downfall to housing in this town. Currently, I'm building a place myself. It cost me $30,000 to get rid of muskeg in that rock.
Thank you, Mr. Niche. We go next to council candidate Sheila Gordon-Payne.
Are you there? I think as we work to expedite things, we also need to continue to keep projects moving. I celebrate the new BC housing projects, both at McKay and down McKay and the street that's there, as well as at Five Corners. We need to keep them moving though. There seem to be delays, so whether that's something the city can put pressure to is the thing to do. I also think work with government to decrease red tape, and as much as we can keep council moving things forward, even if we need to add an extra meeting, keep it moving, don't delay.
Thank you very much. All right, our next council candidate to answer the question is Terry Forster.
Thanks. I just want to appreciate that the current candidates, or the incumbents, have already said a lot of the points that I would like to add. For those of you that don't know, recently council went to the UBCM, and there they passed a unanimous decision to make all rental suites or secondary income from rental suites tax exempt. That's a huge thing for our city, because that means that the basement suite I have in my home, I now can rent out without being charged taxes on it. And that's going to open up a lot of housing and opportunities for people in our community to find affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to Barry Cunningham.
Okay, almost ditto. Council's been very proactive. Most of the recommendations in either of those reports have been implemented. We've been waiving building fees, variance fees, and things like that to get people more interested in building. We don't control the housing market. Interest rates, builders and that do. We put land up for sale for people to use. We've invited builders to come and view the city, tour it, see what's available and that. So, the city's been very proactive the last 4 or 5 years doing
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. We move next to council candidate Andy Chuck.
So the current council has actually done a really good job of taking many of the recommendations, but just answering the question, I'll say that from the expert panel, I'll take the recommendations of offering the density bonuses to affordable housing developers and proactively updating the zoning bylaws to reflect the OCP. And then from the DAPR, I'll take the recommendations to make the internal process of development more efficient, digital permit tracking, approval departments, and a best practice guide for optimization. And we should also implement a process to stop poor quality applications from being received and clogging up the system.
Thank you, Mr. Chuck. Nick Avey, if you are elected, what measures from the developmental approvals process review, which Andy Chuck just mentioned, or the BC Canada expert panel on the future of housing supply and affordability, what would you do to streamline approvals, fast-track developments, and bring more housing supply to the markets?
One of government's key roles is to create the conditions for housing development. We know that housing is a critical need. And during the last 4 years, we've developed some plans, including the OCP and amended bylaws, to facilitate the development approval process. We've already adopted several of the recommendations. We've placed public engagement earlier in the application process. We've updated the development bylaw to include clear, efficient processes. In short, I believe the work we've already done puts us on track to expand available, diverse, and affordable housing.
Thank you very much. And now to our mayoral candidates, beginning with Christopher Thompson.
Great, so a lot of the good work that's already been done has already been mentioned. I think we need to be really data-driven when making any of these decisions, so any measures taken must reflect the housing needs assessment, which was started in April. Of course we need more housing of all kinds, but the housing needs assessment can help to show us which types of housing are most desperately needed right now, and can also help us to inform us which types of housing will be most needed in the years to come as Prince Rupert grows. So one of the measures is partnerships, basically, that any substantial projects in Prince Rupert will be the result of partnerships between
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Herb Pond. If you are elected, what measures will you do to streamline approvals, fast-track developments, and bring more housing supply to the market?
So this mayor and council has already done that heavy lifting. There's not a lot to be done in terms of bylaws. I've talked a lot to builders and developers, and they don't talk about bylaws or process problems at all. They talk about dealing with muskeg, which is being fixed. They deal with demolition of material, and they also talk about financing. And I think the city can play a massive role when it comes to financing and also to opening new subdivisions. We can bring partnerships together. We can help them pre-sell. Banks don't want to lend in Prince Rupert right now to new developments.
Thank you very much. Jason Huang.
Well, I think that I agree with the report on how we should remove town hall, public hearings about zoning. Instead, we should create focus groups with community leaders who have nuanced discussions where those discussions can be recorded and published on the community, have access through internet or other traditional methods. And that way we can learn together that way too.
Thank you very much. And finally, Stephen Fitzpatrick.
Thank you. I agree that, cutting red tape on building permits and zoning and things like that is really not what attracts housing development. I think the city has to get more directly involved in cooperative housing. We have to work with the federal government, provincial government. We have to take money that we're making from land sales, building lots, put that in our legacy fund and use that to build houses.
Thank you very much. And we did have a rebuttal put forward by Reed Skelton-Morvan. Would you like to deliver that now? You have 30 seconds.
Sure, yeah, I definitely have to think back to a few of the comments, but I think it's nice because I now get a little bit more feedback. Immediately, I think the red tape has been cut. At this point, we don't have housing to house workers to build these properties. So when we think of those delays, it's not necessarily because of the city or our staff, because we have a lot of really hardworking staff and dedicated professionals. But at this point in time, it's hard getting workers here. We are at capacity. There's multiple developments happening simultaneously, so there's a lot of hurdles around those fronts. And it's ironic because we need folks to build housing to have folks for places to live. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next question actually pertains to a similar subject, and we're going to keep this next question for just our mayoral candidates, and it is around official community plans. They're understood to be an important tool for developing objectives and policies that guide planning and land use management, including long-term development plans. Official community plans can be strengthened to incentivize more housing supply by giving zoning power so that new proposals compliant with those official community plans can proceed to the development permit stage rather than requiring time-intensive, redundant public hearings. If you are elected, how will you strengthen official community plans to reduce red tape and incentivize more housing supply? We'll begin with our mayoral candidate, Stephen Fitzpatrick.
Thank you. As I just spoke, I believe that the city has to get more directly involved in cooperative housing. There's a lot of money out there with the federal government, provincial government, but we need to step up to the plate and provide some funds of our own. Our budget is not the best. We don't have a lot of money, but if we take land that we're selling right now from the city, invest that into a legacy fund, and we'd use that money to invest in cooperative housing for especially low-income housing.
Thank you very much, Stephen Fitzpatrick. Next to our mayoral candidate, Jason Huang.
I think that our city and everybody, not just in our city, but our whole country knows that housing and red tape is a problem, but I don't think that maybe the youth and the people that want to get involved know enough about it. We need to be able to, recall it here, make it more public for everybody to know what we need to do around that. So I know that if I ask somebody about housing, they say, oh, yeah, it's a problem, but they don't know why it's the problem. So we need to be.
Thank you very much. To our next mayoral candidate, Herb Pond.
So we actually have a great OCP. It was just put in. It's really modern. There's nothing to do. But the key to unlocking housing, in my view, is housing for seniors. Seniors occupy more than 10% of the housing in this community, but many of them are in homes that no longer work for them. New senior-friendly housing projects in the city center would deliver a triple win. Housing supply would instantly be released, the city center would be improved, and seniors would be in the houses that they actually desperately need.
Thank you, Herb Pond. And finally, Christopher Thompson.
So we actually, two? We definitely agreed on that front where finding housing for seniors downtown would be excellent because it would also, I'll finish your point probably, free up housing that is otherwise unavailable in our market right now. That they find either too big or just they don't need the space anymore. So one of the other things I was going to say is that we can do is establish a housing fund. A housing fund could be used to partner in funding affordable housing projects. So these funds can be acquired through the city's land sales, considering the numerous land holdings that the city has in greenfield development sites. as noted in the official community plan.
Thank you very much. We move on now to our third question, and this will include council candidates. What are the plans for Indigenous reconciliation? I'd like to begin this time from the mayoral candidates, and we'll go down alphabetically. Stephen Fitzpatrick, what is your plan for Indigenous reconciliation?
My plan for Indigenous would be, first of all, to bring First Nations groups together with all levels of government and the city to work cooperatively with each other to find ways to better serve each other. I believe that the last project that Lac Lands is doing with the 72 carbon unit is a very good step in the right direction. The city has lots of land, we can use that to negotiate with.
Thank you very much. And to mayoral candidate Jason Huang.
I think we need to learn from the lessons from the past and rectify our mistakes. Horrific things have been done to Indigenous people in schools, especially to the kids. We can attempt to try to heal some of those wounds by providing more opportunities to the kids now. Free opportunities to participate in schools, sports, art, music, dance, and other opportunities to build relationships between estranged communities.
Thank you very much. Mayoral candidate Herb Pond.
I think some of us are getting, not some of us, some people are just getting tired of words around reconciliation without meaningful action. And to me, reconciliation means building true, real working partnerships, like the partnerships between Kapla on the waterfront, or the opportunity that was developed with Lac Walams, where we put in the land and they built the housing. There's so many more of those partnerships, as well as the fact that all of these surrounding nations now are investing in businesses, everything from Rona to Cedar Village Housing.
Thank you, Herb Pond.
Resources.
Sorry to interrupt. 30 seconds is all you have. Mayoral candidate Christopher Thompson.
So as an Indigenous man, this is very important to me. So we can talk about many different things to get towards reconciliation, but what I think we really need to work on is equitable outcomes. So this means that if Indigenous people have statistically lower than average generational wealth, we should work with First Nations bands and other Indigenous organizations to find ways for Indigenous people to build generational wealth, whether that's through co-op housing, different opportunities for investment where they can live in the place and also build their own equity would be a tremendous step in the direction of reconciliation.
Thank you very much. And now to our council candidates. What are your plans for Indigenous reconciliation? We'll begin with Nick Adey.
This Monday, an Indigenous reconciliation framework will come before Council. Among other things, it's going to touch on employment equity, land acknowledgement, signage, and naming. We've already signed MOUs with Metlakatla, Lac Walams, and Kikala, which work towards mutual benefit agreements. Reconciliation involves three key concepts: partnership, education, and respect. Moving forward, we need to continue working to ensure that partnerships emerge and thrive, and that our institutions and the people who represent them embody understanding and mutual respect in the deepest ways possible.
Thank you very much. Andy Chug.
So I don't believe in tokenism, and I think there's a lot of promises that are made, but I want to see tangible action. The government, industry, and Indigenous partners should work closely together in symbiosis for mutual benefit. We should consult them on development projects and sustainability, accept recommendations from the National Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and promote public education inquiry into the highway of tears. I also believe that economic empowerment is necessary for reconciliation. Revenue sharing programs between industry and Indigenous partners, such as those of the Tahltan Nation and Copper Fox Meadows, and Prince Rupert's own Trigon, are fundamental examples of how we can work together and create positive change.
Thank you very much, Andy Chug. Our next council candidate, Barry Cunningham.
Well, like Councillor Adey said, we've got the framework MOU coming out on Monday. So anyone who wants to listen to that will get a good insight into what the council and the surrounding villages have done. We've signed MOUs for different projects with them, and we've given them opportunities for building and things like that, working with them for projects, things like that. Reconciliation is a big word that's tossed around, and a lot of people don't even know what it really means. So I think the city's done some inroads into it, and we'll do more.
Thank you, Barry Cunningham. Our next council candidate answering the question, what are your plans for Indigenous reconciliation? Terry Forster.
Hello? There. Sorry. I wanted to echo what some of the people have already said. We've got some great work done with Memorandum of Understanding or Memorandum of Agreements. And we've got the great plan coming out next week on Monday. But my job that I'm elected is to make sure that it's not just a document that gathers dust on a shelf. It's to consult with community and make sure that we're putting everything into place and making sure that all of you are involved in that process. Thank you. Oh, do I have extra time? I also want to promote the University of Alberta's free education on truth and reconciliation. Everyone can take it and I highly recommend it because it's a great way to learn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sheila Gordon-Payne.
Thank you. I believe reconciliation needs to begin with really understanding, and that's on a local level, and then building relationships. We're now at a time where we can actually begin to meet face to face once again, and I think that we need to do that, and it's more than signing the agreement, it's sitting at the same table, developing a common understanding, and in this case, as a council, we may need to follow before we lead.
Thank you. Wade Niche.
We have signed MOUs with Lackawanna, Metlakatla, and Kitkatla. We have continued to strengthen relationships with these nations. We have worked together on housing projects, with land deals. We have worked with the bands on projects on Watson Island to provide job opportunities. We've also been working with Kitkatla on the waterfront project. Reconciliation will be an ongoing discussion at our table, including upcoming framework. And the biggest thing is we all need to drop our ignorance from the past.
Thank you. Council candidate Gurvinder Randhawa.
Must be inclusion on every level of government and local bands. Our bylaw will be in agenda next meeting. Reconciliation framework will acknowledge employment equity, land acknowledgements, signage and naming economic and social policies around reconciliation. We already have working with Metlakatla, Lekola, Kitkatla, and we don't have revenue, but we have land, so that's how we're working on 70s.
Thank you very much. And Reed Skelton-Morgan.
I think reconciliation has definitely been, as an Indigenous representative on City Council right now, we've talked a little bit about the reconciliation framework motion. I kind of peered my head over actually at one of our lovely city partners who's actually collaborated with us on a reconciliation framework motion that we're putting forward on October 3rd. But reconciliation and the Oxford definition is to make one view compatible with another, which is kind of an Oxford way of saying we'll get along. And I think that's a really low bar to set. I think beyond reconciliation, we have relationship and we have coexistence and all those other pieces. I think with council really putting our focus on, I have a 15-second rebuttal that I can use now as well too.
Indeed you do. Would you like to use that now?
I'll just carry that forward. Yeah, I think for us it's focusing on those shared prosperity agreements, but I rebuttal on some of those, the commentary kind of along the way regarding tokenism and different things like that. And then even relationship in itself is a lot of buzzwords and without real plan for action, and forming these agreements and forming these intentions, we won't really see any bridges being built. For me, I look at these opportunity right now is that we have a barrier of hostility between nations and communities, and to remove that barrier of hostility, we have to repurpose those bricks into bridges instead. And I think that takes a lot of different work, more than beyond the usual buzzwords. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we can move on to our fourth question, and once again, I'll reverse things. This doesn't mean that I prefer Reed Skelton-Morgan, but we will be starting with you again. Question number 4, another important topic. What can the City of Prince Rupert do to actively improve healthcare access in Prince Rupert? This includes access to family physicians, diagnostics, dialysis, and specialist physician services, given that these crucial issues are provincially sourced. What can the city actively do? We'll begin with Councillor candidate Reed Skelton-Morgan.
Thank you. Yeah, and I won't take any favoritism. I appreciate that. Thank you. I think immediately as a local role, again, we don't have coalition kind of oversight over healthcare, but we can advocate and build those relationships and work closely with the senior management and other structures. I think there's plenty of opportunities for us. I think it first and foremost also begins with housing. That seems to be a lot of our root cause right now because there is nowhere for the physicians to relocate and specialized staff and different things like that. I think for those opportunities, especially us as a regional hospital, there's opportunity for us to advocate for those fronts and work together with the nations and other parties involved.
Thank you very much. Council candidate Gurvinder Randhawa.
Most healthy matters are provincial related, but as city council, we should keep lobbying with province and Northern Health, get updates and press community health issues with them, like we had a presentation from Northern Health a few months ago. City should keep on working with Northern Health on hiring and retention policy, such as lending support for the easier transition to their families, and keep on pressing our health issues. Thank you.
Council candidate Wade Niche.
The first thing we can do for healthcare is provide housing for the staff to move here or to stay during their visits. Healthcare is a challenge everywhere, and we can only try and advocate for keeping as many services as possible and try and make the services better. But housing is our challenge, to make healthcare better, and that is where I think we can be the most effective. I have even opened up my own home to out-of-town healthcare workers right now who stay at my home. Currently I have an X-ray technician and a lab technician there. So we need housing, and housing will get us more healthcare workers.
Thank you very much. Sheila Gordon-Payne.
Thank you. Within the first key determinants of health are education, jobs, housing, and childhood experiences. We're talking about all of those tonight. If the city continues to address those and strengthen those, the professionals will follow. We need the key foundation, then they come.
Thank you very much. And once again, our question is, what can Prince Rupert actively do to improve healthcare access? We go next to Council candidate Terry Forster.
30 seconds. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I could talk for hours. I think the biggest thing is advocacy. We've got seats. Our council member, Barry Cunningham, brought back the Healthy Communities Committee, and that's our opportunity to meet with Northern Health and the province to talk about what our community needs. Housing, 100%. I had 5 nursing students stay in my house because otherwise they wouldn't have come here and seen how great our community is. And I would wish for all of you to open your homes the same way, because that's how people are going to come. When people come up here on practicums, they need somewhere to stay, and then they fall in love.
Thank you very much, Terry Forster. We go next to Barry Cunningham.
Okay, advocacy is a very strong position the city can take. Have more health forums like we just did. We resurrected the Healthy Communities Council, which is a group of citizens led by, co-chaired by myself and Julie Pemberton from the hospital, to feed in what we need, petitions, going to legislature, things like that. We just have to keep their feet to the fire and let them know that it's a very big concern of ours.
Thank you very much. And to Council candidate Andy Chugg.
So it is a provincial issue. It's something that I've studied quite extensively as a policy example. And rather not get into that, it's a very convoluted issue. But our role as a city is basically to make Prince Rupert more desirable. If there's nowhere to live, if there's nothing to do here, people aren't going to move here. We need more affordable housing. We need more recreational opportunities. And also, we need to make sure our resources aren't being diverted to terrorists with their new hospital. It's unreasonable to expect people to go there for their treatments. Thank you.
Thank you. And Nick Avey.
I won't repeat what some of the points that have already been made, but I'd like to add that I'm a big supporter of the Talking Tables initiative, which is a way of pooling resources with different expertise in order to develop homegrown solutions for the people that need them the most. That can include policing as well as medical professionals. We can provide a regular opportunity for Northern Health medical professionals and service providers to share their ideas and experiences with council so that we can better understand them and support them.
Thank you very much. And once again, this question is about improving healthcare access in the city. What can the city actively do when many of these crucial issues are provincially sourced? We'll go now to our mayoral candidates, starting with Christopher Thompson.
Yeah, so I'm going to be echoing a lot of what's already been said. We need to find a way to attract nurses and doctors to come live in Prince Rupert, and that is by having adequate housing for them to come and stay and live. I don't know if everybody knows, our hospital is currently about 50% staffed. So we really do, we want to make sure that these healthcare professionals are not getting burned out. We want to make sure that we can attract enough so that they aren't having to work overtime all the time. Because the last thing we want is to have fewer healthcare workers because they're being burned out. So yeah, once again, housing.
Thank you very much. Mayoral candidate Herb Pont.
So Mayor Brain. Hello. Mayor Brain's involved himself directly in the recruiting initiative, and he has a 100% success rate. I would do exactly the same thing. But there's really practical ways that we can be involved. I was part of the council that cleared all the roadblocks for the building of Acropolis Manor. We did the same thing for Ravens Keep. But the other powerful tool is we sit on the Northwest Regional Health Authority, which actually spends the money to build the hospitals. That's what every politician on this stage would be part of.
Thank you very much. Jason Huang.
So we've been able to attract doctors, nurses, and paramedics, but we can't convince them to stay. We need to make Prince Rupert a place where people are proud to live in and not wanting to flee. So we need to start by beautifying this town to keep these passionate professionals. We also have to give them competitive wages to keep up with the traveling professionals as well. I want to help to provide opportunities to grow some homegrown individuals as well.
Thank you. And finally, to mayoral candidate Stephen Fitzpatrick.
Thank you very much. Well, all the points you made, basically, if you're going to have a community that pays some of the highest property taxes in the province, you need to have a community that has good infrastructure and good recreational services. Those are the types of things that keep people here. Those are the types of things that people want to stay here and raise families. Outside of that, the municipality doesn't really have a lot to say or do to encourage or force doctors or nurses or professionals to come here. It's basically in the hands of the provincial government, so we need to lobby our MLA and make sure that she's doing her job.
Thank you very much. And we have several rebuttals to this question. We'll begin with Terry Forster.
Unsurprising, this is a hot topic. I agree, the regional board, the Northwest Regional Hospital Board would be an amazing thing for me to be on because I already have relationships with a lot of those people. We need to make sure that the relationships are strong because we need the province to be on board with improving healthcare. The province is responsible for improving wages. As a city, we don't have any authority over that, but we can offer housing incentives to people that come. City of Fort St. John recently did that. They were able to recruit quite a few new people.
Thank you very much. And to Reed Skelton Morvan.
There we go, we're back. I think some of those pieces around taxes, it would probably pay to do some homework around why the taxes are so high. I think pieces just kind of arbitrary comments and throwing those pieces out there, I think that's a big part of it. But again, there's a strong foundation that we need to lay in the aspects of childcare, housing, and then as well as some retention pieces, which I think this council has been very proactive about utilizing various partnerships as well as relationships and having folks come to the table. Thank you.
And one more rebuttal from Barry Cunningham.
The city of Fort St. John gets $25 million a year in resource benefit coming from that area. So if we get the resource benefit alliance that we're looking for, we'll have the money to start doing things like other towns. The mayor took doctors around and had 100% retention of the doctors that he actually gave tours to. Once they come to Prince Rupert and see what the place is like, they fall in love with it and stay here. So even with the housing shortage, we're still finding ways to keep them here.
Thank you. And did I see Sheila Gordon-Payne with the rebuttal card as well? Go ahead.
So to some that have offered one solution, I go back again to all of the different determinants of health. It needs to be a package that the city puts its full weight behind, a multi-pronged approach. If you can get someone here with incentives, but the chance is less likely that they will stay. St. Paul's right now is offering a year free of somewhere to live and $10,000 when you walk in the door. Those are happening all over the place. Our city needs to work on all the factors, put it together, and let people come raise a family here and work here. The city has the weight to do that.
Thank you very much. We will take a 5-minute break here before we go to our next set of questions, which will be delivered by KJ Miller from the Northern View. So sit back, chat to one another for 5 minutes, and we'll reconvene very shortly. Yes, we also have a lot of viewers on our YouTube channel tonight, so it's great to see this coming together for the sake of democracy tonight. So we're going to try to get to as many of these questions from the public as we can, but first I would like to invite KJ Miller of the Northern View to ask council and candidates a series of questions.
Okay, hello. Good evening, everybody. So I have a few questions we're going to ask. And the first one that I am really interested in hearing about is, I understand that every candidate has endorsed the scrapping of the port tax cap. So I'd like to hear from the candidates, why do you feel that you are the best person or the best candidate to get results from the provincial government regarding this issue?
Thank you very much for the question. So we want to know, why do you feel you are the best person to get results from the provincial government in regards to scrapping the port tax? We'll start with our mayoral candidates. Stephen Fitzpatrick, you may begin.
Okay, thank you for the question. We met with the Port Corp, I met with the Port Corp and some of the candidates there about a week ago, and I'll tell you right now, they're not in the mood to go into any sort of cooperative adventure with us and to share any of the tax revenue that they're being capped at, and they enjoy the cap, and basically we've got to work hard with our provincial government, we've got to lobby our provincial government. They're the ones that created Bill 8, and they're the ones that can change Bill 8. I would suggest to our MLA that she enter a private members bill to change Bill 8 and make it more feasible for communities like Prince Rupert to share in the revenue that Port Corps are making.
Thank you very much, Stephen Fitzpatrick. We go next to Jason Huang.
I think that my drive to succeed and my passion for success, no other candidates can match. I am a multiple champion in the hardest physical sport in the world, wrestling, and the most intellectual sport, chess. So let me turn my competitive instincts into your advantage. I won't back down. I won't stop moving forward towards my goal. Only conflict makes me stronger. So whether it's business negotiating with large companies like Air Canada or advocating for youth programs, I will fight hard for people under my care. Good enough is no longer good enough. Let me fight for your future.
Thank you very much. Mayoral candidate Herb Pond.
So, getting a container terminal was not easy for this community. It was an impossible dream, but we got it because we built coalitions of people that cooperated together. We need to bring First Nations into this. They have a terrific say in what's going on in the community. We need to bring other partners into a coalition that will go and eliminate this tax. But we also have to recognize solving this tax problem is just the start. It won't get us to $600 million of infrastructure money.
Thank you, Herb Pond. Mayoral candidate Christopher Thompson.
So one positive is that I have no existing relationships or history working for multinational oil and gas companies. I would never spread anti-scientific lies about the environment and its effects of greenhouse gases, just so that a company can get slightly higher profit. That being said, I am pro-development and pro-industry. I will stick to the facts and the numbers. We have an extremely attractive port, even if there was no tax cap. We'd still have deep, ice-free harbor with rail that goes right to the shore. And when industry makes calculations for profit, these make a bigger influence long-term than the incentive provided by a tax cap. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We go next to our council candidates. Once again, given that every candidate has endorsed scrapping the port tax cap, why do you feel you are the best person to get results from the provincial government? Nick Adey.
In the reference of the question, this is a we question, not a me question. We need a collective voice, acknowledging that the mayor is uniquely placed to act as spokesperson. In terms of working with the provincial government, I think the best approach on this issue is to be aggressive enough to achieve a recognition that action is required. Then we need to collaborate, and that will involve the provincial government as regulator, municipal government, stakeholders, and industry to resolve the problem.
Thank you. To Andy Chuck.
I think I respectfully disagree with the way the question is worded. As a council member, the council operates as, one unanimous organism. We're not really, there's no best person to achieve results. The council needs to work together. We each bring something new to the table, and we can only push a vision if we collaborate with each other. I understand that there's two sides to this story. It's not just like the city versus the port. There's a lot that's not being revealed to the public. I mean, even with a petition, there's a side of it that's not being put forward. And I recognize that I need to take into account both sides of the story and work with the industry and the government.
Thank you, Andy Chuck. Next to Barry Cunningham.
Okay, the province did a report just a while ago. We're not convinced that the lower property taxes would be a driving force in the location of a port. Road and rail weigh in more in the location, and it's just poor legislation. It was great for 5 years. The port is a landlord. They collect leases. They don't collect taxes. I don't even know why they're concerned about it. At the end of the day, it's part of the financial problem the city has, and it's just one part. And we've got to work together to solve it, us, the port, and the province.
Thank you very much. Terry Forster.
Am I on? Yes. Thank you. I want to agree with what's already been said. It's not a me solution, it's a we solution. And we do need to find ways to work together because nothing else is going to fix this. Changing this isn't going to give us $600 million. We need to look at this, as many people have said, as a multi-pronged approach. I'm open to working with the port. I'm new. I don't have any promises that I've made with them. I haven't had any arguments with them. I'm going to work together with people because solutions focused is the way that I work.
Thank you very much. Sheila Gordon-Payne.
I signed the petition because I believe it creates a good tension and awareness of what is going on if we don't address the port tax cap. I believe that our strength will be if we don't go at this alone as a city. We need to bring stakeholders with us. Many options have already been mentioned. I also would like to go back and approach the port again and remind them that they signed an agreement in 2018 with a small advisory business group where they would approach government with us to address this. And I don't know if COVID got in the way or what happened, but it's time to reset and restart.
Thank you very much. Wade Niche.
I have listened to the unwillingness for 8 years by both Liberal and NUP parties to come to a reasonable resolution. I feel it has been largely ignored and we have always tried to play nice to figure this out. Well, now that this issue has come to the forefront, it is time for the Port Authority, the province, and the city to come to a resolution, to make us a first world port in a community that is not a third world town. They want us to be successful, but choose not to support us. Without some movement in tax revenue, we cannot support growth. I have listened to enough excuses over the last 8 years, and now it is time to show them one last time why they need to support our efforts. I feel I've heard enough bullshit.
Thank you, Wade Niche. Gurvinder Randhawa.
Although we support growth of port industries, but everyone should pay their fair share. For the last 8 years with fellow councillors and mayor, we are working very hard and raising this issue with the province. And we are even working with other 8 municipalities affected by the caps to the province. I have experience with this issue and will continue to advocate this issue with the province until we get a positive outcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Reed Skelton Morvan.
Thank you. Well, I won't bullshit and say that I'm good at chess. I'm not sure what chess had to do with some of that, but I will say that we have a huge opportunity to kind of move one of those sliding scales, whether that is the port incentives grant and that to increase and offset our impact, or to scrap the tax cap altogether. They've had those options on the table for quite some time. I think for us, as one of the few ports that's under 50,000 people, I think there's amendments that can be made that does not capture and attract attention to all of the other ports. So I think for some of those pieces we can touch on, but it really boils down to strong advocacy and actually making something happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have a rebuttal from Wade Niche. And from Barry.
This is just to finish off what I was going to say. I've heard enough, and I feel I want to be on the team, but I need a down jersey. My experience in this and hearing for the last 8 years, it is time to resolve this problem, and I think someone like myself who's been here for 8 years, who knows all the ins and outs of this, would be the right person to deal with it.
Thank you. And to Barry Cunningham with another rebuttal.
Okay, people got to realize this isn't exactly the port, it's the province's legislation that put this cap in place, and it's the province that could take it out. The port could help us do it. I don't think the first words that came out of Don Curcell's mouth when he was selling the port, heck, in 2004 or whatever it was look, you can come to Prince Rupert, get a tax break. No, it's come to Prince Rupert, it's 2 days less sailing, it's better rail connection and everything else. So I really think that the province has to step up here.
Any further rebuttals? Pont?
Yeah, I think I also want to say to industry that this does not need to lead to crippling increases. I don't think it's something you have to be afraid of. It does mean that you'll need to work with us to find a number that allows you to continue to expand, but that also treats other taxpayers fairly.
Thank you very much. KJ Miller with the Northern View, would you like to deliver your next question?
I would. So many people feel that there's not enough transparency from City Hall and decisions are being made without public knowledge or understanding. So my question to the candidates is twofold. I want to hear what the candidates' definition of transparency means to them. And if elected, what will the candidates do to ensure transparency from City Hall?
Thank you very much. And we will start this time down at the end with Council candidate Reid Skelton Morgan.
I think transparency for itself, I guess we'll start with the first half of that, in itself is being able to clearly articulate what is happening so that folks don't think decisions are being made behind the scenes. And also the second half of that, I think, is also understanding what closed meetings are for. So anytime there is land, legal, and labor, it is not conducive or in the best interest of the taxpayer for us to go public with what numbers and what budgets we have available for any given project, because a proponent will then bid with that number. Obviously, because we have those, it's just having open books. So there's a lot of those pieces and procedures that we have to be strategic about. But thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Gurvinder Randhawa.
Thank you. I'm a believer in committees being usually made up of individuals who have knowledge, experience, and training in the field of area being researched on behalf of council and city staff. Opposed to political appointments with the aim of council receiving the best possible committee recommendation that they can get. I will work to be a team player with city staff, volunteer groups, council and community members, and to be open to learning from those voices and factors.
Thank you. Wade Nish.
I don't feel that it's a matter of being not transparent. Like Mr. Skelton had mentioned, it's the 3 L's, land, legal, and labor. These are things that cannot be discussed in a public meeting until an appropriate time. So I think realistically is people need to reach out more and try and find out the answers that they want to hear, because, you know, my phone is available to anyone at any time, and anytime anyone calls me, I answer the phone and I will talk to you. If I don't answer it, I'll call you back.
Thank you very much. The question, what would you do to increase transparency? We go next to Sheila Gordon-Payne.
Thank you. We've just heard the parameters from Councillor Nish of what should and shouldn't be in a closed or in-camera session. The challenge is what can you slip into those areas that actually don't need to be there. And so I think that as all councillors, we need to be on guard to keep whatever can be in the public forum, and only move to closed meetings for what doesn't fit there. But it's a slippery slope. You can fit so many things in those areas, so the care needs to be there on behalf of everyone.
Thank you. Terry Forster.
Sorry, just before Terry asks, I'm just going to repeat the question. What is the candidate's definition of transparency? And if elected, what will the candidates do to ensure transparency from City Hall?
Thanks. Transparency to me is similar to many other people's definitions, but I also add integrity to that, because my integrity is part of transparency. It's making sure people know what is happening and why. It also means me admitting when I'm wrong, not to my husband, but to everybody else. When I'm wrong, I will admit it. And that's something that as council we will need to do, because we are going to make mistakes and we're going to make unpopular decisions, but we need to talk about them and be honest and not be scared to be truthful. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry Forster. Next to Council candidate Barry Cunningham.
Well, transparency is an interesting word. Are we there? Not totally. But I think it's education, understanding. You know, people don't understand some of the things that council has to do. You know, we've had a lot of closed meetings to solve Watson Isle, a lot of other things. You don't tell people in a chess game what your next move's gonna be, and there's things that the council just can't bring out into the public until it's done. And that's where this transparency sometimes is questioned. How come you guys aren't telling us what you're doing in that? Well, it's one of those things that, it's
Thank you,
education
Barry
too.
Cunningham. Sorry to interrupt you. Andy Chuck.
I think transparency is honest, clear communication about what's going on and what the city is doing. I understand with Rupert Legacy and the bidding for a lot of local projects, there's been some issues with transparency, but the city has to do some things that are confidential. It's just the way that things operate. I know that we can improve things going forward. We could do more town halls and more presentations, communicate more directly with people. We had the State of the City presentation earlier in June, which is a great example of giving people a direction of what the city is doing. But there is some things that can't be revealed to the public just because of confidential matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick Avey.
I'm happy to be part of an election campaign that includes the word transparency, unlike all the other ones. I don't mean to be too cynical, but transparency to me is sharing what we're doing and listening to what people think about what we're doing. And I think the record would show that I've been a consistent person on council that has said, okay, when are we going to go to the public with this? What is the public going to say about this? That's always been my standpoint, and that's what I'll continue to do going forward.
Thank you. And now to our mayoral candidates, starting with Christopher Thompson.
So to me, transparency is making sure that people know what's going on with City Hall, but also with things going on around the city, like the public works and repairs that are being done. So one of the ways that I think we can get a little bit more transparency is by having plans for staging plans for which parts of the city are going to be worked on next. So even if it is like a really long-term thing, like, hey, we're going to look at your curbs in 5 years, then at least people have an understanding of when things are happening. So there's a lot more transparency there. They can come to council and with their complaints, hey, we need this urgently now. And that would provide a lot more.
Thank you, Christopher Thompson. Herb Pond.
So this is one area where I'm pretty old-fashioned. I believe that when we get together as a council, we're doing the people's business, and we actually have a sacred responsibility. It's enacted in legislation, and I'm a bit of a bear on that. We need to be very careful. It's so tempting to slide things into closed council meetings. I'm not suggesting anybody's doing it. It's just tempting, and I'm a bear on it. Decision-making needs to be as public as possible, and personally, we need to be approachable.
Thank you, Herb Pond. Jason Huang.
Transparency to me means to be honest. You should be, and also be really accessible to public. Like, today's world, it's gone digital. Answers to all these questions should be as easy as, hey Siri, what's going on? Okay Google, what's going on in the council meeting today? That's what you need to know what's happening, whether it's good or bad.
Thank you. And Stephen Fitzpatrick.
Yes, well, I guess transparency in government has always been a dilemma for any government, whether it be local, municipal, or federal. We have so many ways of presenting transparency with social media. I mean, I go old school and I would say, like, why don't we just print the council meetings in the paper on a weekly basis and let people read the minutes and decide for themselves what they want to comment and come back on us with.
Thank you. And we have some rebuttals. We'll start with Terry Forster.
Thank you. I didn't answer the ensure transparency. I sit on a board where we have a lot of in-camera discussions, and we've worked hard as a board to start bringing what's decided in camera out of camera when the time is right. So I've heard from a lot of people reasons why we go in camera. When those things have been addressed and solved, that's when we would bring them as a council out of in camera so then everyone can know. That will improve transparency and make sure everybody knows why we put things in camera. And it's because we're being strategic. Thank you.
Thank you. And a rebuttal from Reed Skelton Morvan.
I think some of the pieces are, again, just re-articulating around how we have to be extremely strategic. And I also I appreciate Terry's comment as well, is that bringing those in-camera and confidential meetings forward when the time is right, I think is really important, and being really strategic about our moves. At this point in this stage, we have a lot of different adversarial relationships with a lot of different organizations and proponents, and everyone has their own fiduciary responsibility, meaning they have their own interests and their own pockets and all of those other pieces. So for us, when we represent you and we're chosen and elected in these positions, we are to make as beneficial decisions as possible to each of you.
Thank you very much, Reed Skelton Morgan. KJ Miller, do you have one more question you'd like to ask tonight?
We do, and I understand that some people believe that Prince Rupert has dropped the ball and that with the community and has not taken any discernible action to mitigate climate change through community awareness or by developing a policy that is applicable to residents. I would like to understand how the candidates propose to bring the community in line with the climate goals for 2030.
Thank you very much. We will start at this end with our mayoral candidates. Stephen Fitzpatrick, how you propose to bring the community in line with climate goals for 2030?
Well, Rupert has always been a little behind the 8 ball when it comes to that kind of ecology stuff. I'm glad to see the recycling program is functioning right now, but it doesn't expand itself to most apartment buildings, if I'm not mistaken. I know the apartment I live in doesn't have recycling bins. You know, transit is a big opportunity for people to stop driving their cars. We have a very small town. I've often proposed that maybe we should just drop transit fees and maybe that way people would use the bus more often.
Thank you. And Jason Huang.
Okay. Again, I'd also like to continue with our previous mayor's ongoing with the recycling bin initiative, but go further. Like, I'm from Vancouver, and I'd like to adapt the effective ideas from bigger cities like their compost bin to reduce the waste at our landfills, putting waste in the community garden to promote more knowledge about climate change as well.
Thank you. Herb Pond.
Composting is coming, I understand. We also are looking at large-scale local food supply. The raising of the dam allows us to do a city hydroelectric project, which is what we did at the founding of the city. Can you imagine electric vehicles being charged by our own hydropower? And we could support, either on Watson Island or elsewhere, blue hydrogen export.
All right, and to Christopher Thompson.
So many things that we can do as a city is included in the 2030 plans, making the city more walkable. Some of the things I would like to see is more community gardens to have more independence in terms of food supply. In addition, I support the creation of green jobs here in Prince Rupert. While energy from BC Hydro is relatively inexpensive, it would serve the community to develop municipally owned and operated energy production. So not only would it create jobs for local people, it would allow redundancy in the event of landslides and other natural disasters. The city's already has a plan in place for sustainable green projects and has looked at surface level feasibility for tidal, wind, solar power. I'm especially excited in tidal over at Butsy Rapids.
Thank you very much, Christopher Thompson. To our council candidates now, starting with Nick Avey.
As a parent, I think that the world that we leave for the generations that come after is tremendously important. This is an issue that is central to that. I think it's one of those things where it takes a lot of small actions and it takes a lot of big actions. I do think that there are actions in play. I think we've got the recycling station, the recycling program going. There's an EV station. I think that the economy is going to catch up in terms of people's choices when it comes to transport. We do have an active transportation plan coming, so I think there are things in the works.
Thank you very much, Nick Avey. Andy Chuck.
Hello? So I disagree that the city hasn't done anything. If you look through the 2030 plan, sustainability is a really big part of the plan and my own personal platform. Something that I'm personally very excited about is a wastewater treatment plant that's being proposed near Almanica. Odor-free, completely sustainable, a really interesting concept. You should check it out. The city has a new recycling program. They've diverted traffic downtown, commercial traffic downtown, with a new Ridley Island connector, and that opened up the opportunity for bike lanes and different roads, so there's less idle traffic and idle engines. And the city's also investing in a new green fleet for
Next. Sorry to interrupt you.
Thank you.
Barry Cunningham.
Well, just repeating a lot of stuff that's said, the recreation plan, the transportation plan, the recycling, waste management plans. If anyone knows anything about the 2030 plan, there's a lot of sustainability factors to that. It's, you know, it's a lot's being done and a lot has to be done to keep it going, but it's all there. The framework's there, we just got to work within it.
Thank you. To Terry Forster.
Thanks. Similar to everybody, the 2030 plan sets us up. It's got the framework for us to go for the next 10 years to improve sustainability for our entire city. What's not in the plan that I would like to add is through the the worldwide climate summit that took place in Paris, there are quite a few incentives and grants that the city can apply to the federal government to see implementation of quite a few of these ideas. And while I think they've already looked at many of them, maybe we can look at them again with fresh eyes because the plans we've got are great.
Thank you. Sheila Gordon-Payne.
Thank you. The plans we have are great and they're very lengthy, up to 300 pages. I think that if we really want to move an initiative like this forward, you need to be able to draw out what the priorities are, share those with the community, and then actually develop, okay, what are the actions we will take to move forward? Pick what's measurable and pick what we want to do. We've heard so many things tonight without any time frame or how we will achieve them. So pick one of the priorities and pursue them. Figure out how to share these plans adequately and coordinate the efforts.
Thank you. Wade Niche.
Our role is not as big as upper levels of government, but at our level we can do things such as changing municipal buildings to have more efficient heating and cooling, work towards implementing maybe electric vehicles for some of our fleet, charging stations. We can also encourage industry to take steps to be more green and work with new industries that are more forward thinking, whether that be hydrogen or wind farms, but not closing the door on transitional industries such as propane and LNG. We have to be open-minded to everything and continue to have a healthy economy while trying to move towards a cleaner future.
Thank you very much. Gurvinder Randhawa.
Climate change will impact Prince Rupert and surrounding areas in a variety of ways. Rupert should develop policy and implement actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and mitigate the impact of climate change. Ensure development happens outside of hazard and environmentally sensitive areas, preserve and enhance natural environments, improve resilience and moderate the expected impacts. Renewable energy sources, wind, tidal and solar are part of diversified farming.
Thank you. And Reed Skelton-Morgan.
I think the whole world has dropped the ball in this department. I think there's a lot of different, I agree with Councillor Rady, I look at some of the pieces of higher levels of government as well as some of the other pieces that were mentioned there. Again, I also want to think immediately about our sewage treatment plant. So that was not a sexy investment. That $300 million for a giant building that smells like an outhouse. Doesn't seem like a great investment. So for myself in 2019 and the former city manager, we went to Quebec City to the FCM and we got a chance to meet with some folks that had an innovative process and how to treat sewage, which incorporated a lot of our plethora of muskeg, as well as some media that was able to save us $230 million should this be able to go through and we're able to do this below the parallel. Thank you.
You very much, Reed Skelton-Morgan. We have a rebuttal from Terry Forster.
Thanks. I just wanted to clarify, we do have timelines for a lot of these projects. Next year, the city has in place that they are going to start the food sustainability work. They have in the 2030 plan, the plan for the waste pilot so that then we can have zero emissions coming from our waste. And there are plans that have timelines that are coming up very quickly. So I think the city and the plans are doing really well.
And another rebuttal from Sheila Gordon-Payne.
Thank you. I think it's great that the city's doing really well, and we've heard about 2 dozen projects in front of us right now. The problem is that we just heard some of the reports in the local news say they weren't aware of this. So if that's the case, how do we inform people and make sure we are all on the right track?
A rebuttal from Reed Skelton-Morgan.
I think it's definitely challenging because these topics can be really dry and they aren't very shareable. If we miss them in the paper, there's all those pieces, I think. So there's a lot of pieces that we've been able to be very strategic in how we communicate and move those pieces forward, especially as they're pilot projects that kind of lead to something else. But I also wanted to take a second just to acknowledge our staff for working diligently on that file because that's a pretty significant price tag for savings for the municipality.
Thank you very much, and thank you to KJ Miller as well for presenting the questions on behalf of the Northern View. We don't have very much time left, but I do have a stack of questions from the public, so we'll try to get to a couple of those before we get to the closing remarks from the candidates. I want to start with this question, and we'll once again start from Reed's end, Reed Skelton Morvan. What have you done to support the local LGBTQ plus community? We'll start with Council candidate Reed Skelton Morvan.
I think for us it was really strategic, and I worked within the frameworks of some of our branding, but also that having those folks and actually having first-hand perspective on the ground. For me, having a lot of close friends that are members of this community, myself being an ally, and working closely with those people, with folks, and finding pieces to be more representative and inclusive as a municipality, and being the city of rainbows, I think is pretty freaking awesome, by the way.
Gurvinder Randhawa.
Can you repeat again, please?
What have you done to support the local LGBTQ plus community?
I'm passing.
Okay. Wade Niche.
From a council perspective, I don't think that there's been a lot of work done there. You know, from my own perspective, I mean, everyone's free and willing to do what they want to do and be who they want to be. And you know, I'm supportive of that. And you know, other than that, from a council perspective, I don't feel that you know, we've addressed any issues or had to deal with anything that was a problem. So if someone has anything else to say, like I said, give me a call.
Sheila Gordon Payne.
I think that is part of being a community leader, is to work for and with the diversity of your community. So to address something specifically, I would only say that I work to continue to educate myself and educate others, including on paperwork and things like that, so that if someone identifies as a gender that they are not physically there, and I apologize for my use of the language, but if we have someone that goes by a name that we can't put on the paperwork properly, then I work to correct that and to change that.
Terry Forster.
Thanks for the question. I identify as an ally. I'm a cisgendered female person who's married to a man. So I'm an ally. That means that I support other people because they're different from me, but they're still valuable and they mean something. Every year I help paint the Rainbow Crosswalk, which is a small thing every single one of us can do. I educate myself and I work as a peer mentor with quite a few of our trans youth, as well as people who identify within the LGBTQ2+ community. I've been a guest on Rainbow Nation, which is an amazing local podcast to put forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Barry Cunningham.
Well, whatever initiative is brought forward to council, we've supported it. You know, the sidewalk, things like that. Sometimes I think we could support the community more, but we've got to know the problems and the initiatives that they want brought forward, and then we can look at them and support them. And I don't think there's anyone sitting on council right now that would in any way inhibit any of their initiatives.
Thank you. Andy Chug.
I think this question is largely aimed at members of council who have already served a term, but I'll just say for me personally, I think everyone should get to decide how they want to live their life, and it's not really up to the government or anyone else to tell them who they can or cannot love. As a councillor, if I'm elected, I'm committed to working with the LGBTQ+ community, and any initiative they want to have, anything in Prince Rupert, any events that we want to do, I'm more than happy to support that. Thank you.
Nick Avey.
I would concur. The experience of the last 4 years is that this is not an issue that has come directly to council. That doesn't mean that we're not receptive to it. And I think that, like any other organizations, if there are advocacy groups that want to have council support them in any way, we're wide open to that. I also think, as a retired teacher, that a lot of really brilliant work is being done in the school system where people are growing up and forming their own identities. And I think the work that's being done there is serving to create tolerance.
Thank you, Nick Avey. We go to our mayoral candidates now. We'll start with Christopher Thompson.
So I'm a proud ally. I've volunteered at PRMS Skills Club when I was working there. I volunteered with the Pride Float with some of my students from PCS as well as students from PRMS and CHSS. I was recently on the Rainbow Nation podcast. So all that to say, I'm a very supportive ally. I will, respect people's pronouns, anybody's name changes, how somebody chooses to identify. I think that is extremely important that we respect them and listen to that, because nobody knows themselves, knows who they are better than themselves.
Thank you. Herb Pond.
So if you're an educator, or if you're married to an educator as I am, you get just a real awareness of the vulnerability of a large portion of our community and the need to make it a very safe place for them. But if you saw a couple of Australians walking around town this summer with these on, that was my brother and his husband walking around our community, and so it's a personal thing for me too.
Thank you. Jason Huang.
I've been coaching kids for the last 2 decades, and I have encountered many of this community, and just for me, I'd like to educate about bullying and acts that happen to friends of mine, and I continue to do that now, and I will continue to do that forever. So.
Thank you. And Stephen Fitzpatrick.
Well, I think that the answer there lies with each and every one of us as individuals. I took a no tolerance policy about 10 years ago, and I said I'm not going to tolerate sexism or discrimination, and I'm going to call you right in your face when I can, every time I can. And I think that depends on each individual to do that.
Thank you very much. Do we have time for one more question from the public? Yes? Oh, sorry. 2 rebuttals. I think Terry Forster has a rebuttal before we move on.
Thanks. I didn't finish my complete thought. I wanted to add, the week after the election is International Pronouns Day, and I used my pronouns at the beginning, and I have an education that I developed for nurses that I would be happy to develop or share with everyone in the community, because sharing your pronouns is important for people that need to be seen, because that's one way that we can make things safe, especially for our youth, because mental health is killing our youth because they aren't feeling seen when they want to use their pronouns. Thank you.
Thank you. And one more rebuttal that I see from Sheila Gordon-Payne.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, because I'd like a do-over on my answer. Rather, I was thinking with a council, what examples were from a council lens, but as my colleague Terry has been saying, I really should have been thinking about my work in the emergency department in the hospital, where we work hard every day, every person that comes in our door, patient or a family member, to give people all the freedom of choice that they need. We give them the safety they need, and we give them the respect that they need. And that's what I do every day.
Thank you. And another rebuttal from Barry Cunningham.
What Andy said, this isn't a government situation. It's something that everyone in the community should be accepting and be involved in. It's a thing that we, as human beings, have to accept other people, whether you like their lifestyle or not. It's something, they're human beings, and they should be accepted by all of us. I don't think it's something that the government can help in a way, but at the end of the day, it's us that have to do it.
Thank you very much. And because of time constraints, I'm going to ask one more question from the audience, and I'm going to direct it just to the mayoral candidates so we can get to our closing remarks. And this circles around to, I think, one of the hot topics of the evening. This audience question reads, how is the city going to make CN/the Port Authority/VP pay taxes instead of donating? So we'll start with mayoral candidate Stephen Fitzpatrick.
Well, as I said earlier, we can talk cooperatively all we like, but if there's no will for them to participate and just keep the tax cap as they see fit, then there's not much we can do about it. The other side of the coin is we have to get very political with them. We have to get very political. We have to build coalitions. We have to build networks with communities who are also reliant on Port Corp revenues and Port Corp business, and make sure we go to the municipalities conferences with a consolidated front to make sure we got to change Bill 8.
Thank you very much. Jason Huang.
Also, same thing there. I think that using other cities as with the same kind of problems can help with that. We can use big media as well. Like I have connections within big media platforms where we can have bigger communities help out with the problems that we have here.
Thank you. Herb Pond.
So the real problem with all of these industries and the port and others is actually the way the properties are valued. And it's done very differently when the way your house is valued. And we're not alone in this. Every single small rural community in British Columbia faces exactly the same problem. We don't have to be alone in this fight. We can actually bring a united coalition by just bringing people together. I served on the board of UBCM. I understand how to organize that. I've done that work before, and I'll do it again.
Thank you very much. And Christopher Thompson.
So each of the marine export industries are running a business. I don't know, is the question implying that all these businesses will just pay the difference in the taxes from what they're currently paying in industry standard voluntarily? Because I don't think that's a possibility. I don't think unless we get this tax cap removed that they will be paying their fair share of what Prince Rupert really deserves and is quite frankly owed from this fairly free ride that they've been given. I think, just assuming that a corporation that is for profit is going to be doing things of their own volition is unreasonable.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the audience as well for listening with us tonight. We'll begin our closing remarks now. Each candidate has 1 minute for their closing remarks, and we'll start back at the head here with mayoral candidate Stephen Fitzpatrick.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for coming out and listening to us. As I said earlier in my opening remarks, I have a lot of political experience behind my belt from my university days, right up until my Prince Rupert days. I make it a habit to make sure that I know what's going on. I try to stay in touch as much as I can with all the mediums. And I believe that this city is a great city. It's a beautiful city. It's a gem of a city. It's something we should be very proud of. We should never forget that. We should make our people first. We seem to have a problem in Rupert of always satisfying everybody else, whether it be the poor corps or the big business or the downtown crowd. We need to start looking after our people. We need housing, we need better roads, we need better sidewalks, we need better trails, we need a better place for people to live in. Our own people. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Huang.
Thank you everyone for coming in tonight. This election is about the future. The best indicator of what you can do for the future is what you've done in the past. With determination and hard work, I have overcome obstacles to succeed. This is the time that we need a new voice. We need your voice. A new type of leadership for the city, and that's why I'm running for mayor. I ask you to come out October 15th, and please consider me when you vote. But do please come out. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Herb Pond.
We need to keep moving forward. There's an urgent need for growth. Healthcare, childcare, education, recreation are all population dependent. So our festivals and events, small businesses depend on population to provide both staff and customers. Yet census data sets our growth in the 5 years between 2016 and 21 at 80. Check it yourself, 80 people in 5 years. That's why the push to renew our infrastructure is so urgent. That's why the push to expand our housing is so urgent. That's why rebuilding the city center is so urgent. We must not become a glorified work camp. I started tonight with the economic revolution that began at Fairview. That almost didn't happen. It took intensive effort by a coalition led by the Port, the City, ILWU 505. It's time to assemble a coalition of First Nations industry, labor, government to secure equal investments in the community's success. I have those relationships. I know how to work with council and city staff. We can catch up. We can, we must, we will keep moving forward.
Thank you. Christopher Thompson.
Prince Rupert has had its share of both growth and hard times. I recognize the critical issues we face and how multifaceted they can be. I understand that my biggest concern, our housing crisis, is something that the city can't fix on its own. But I also understand that we do have tools at our disposal, which we can use to get houses built. Partnerships will be the most important tool in getting where we need to go. These partnerships combine the three things we need to get houses built. The city has the land in which to build. The private sector has the builders, and Indigenous bands and other levels of government have funds to make this happen. I'm so passionate about the city addressing the housing crisis, not only from my experience working at the alternate school, but also because having more housing will have a ripple effect of positivity throughout our beautiful city. Thank you.
Thank you. And now to our council candidates with our closing remarks. Nick Adey.
I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce, my fellow candidates, and all of you for attending tonight's event. To summarize, I think we've heard that in the OCP, the amended bylaws, partnerships with First Nations, and other initiatives, we have the foundation needed to move forward as a community. I've been honored by the faith that voters placed in me 4 years ago. I promised then to listen, learn, collaborate, and act. And I've stayed true to those principles and will continue to do so if re-elected. I believe I offer a thoughtful, measured approach. It is my nature when issues are contentious to strive for that middle ground that allows us all to feel that we were heard and our opinions valued. If elected, I will continue to take that approach in the hope that public policy will accurately reflect the diverse aspirations of our community. I hope I can count on your support on October 15th. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy Chuck.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, Madam Moderator, there are many great ideas that were discussed here tonight. And I think we can confirm that all candidates are in favor of the 2030 vision. So I'll cut to the chase. I'm not going to use fancy rhetoric to sell you outlandish promises that I can't keep, because the truth is that an individual council's powers are quite limited. It's no secret that I'm the youngest candidate sitting on the stage right now. I think you've all probably noticed that by now. And I don't think my age is a weakness. I consider it an asset. I can see things in a way that the other candidates can't. I'm in touch with the current and future generations, and I have a sense of energy and optimism that only youth can provide. I want to emphasize that I'm not in this for a job, and quite frankly, there's a lot of other things that I can do. This is personal for me, not theoretical. The decisions we make will directly impact my life and my future. We talk about affordability, but it's my generation that can't afford to pay rent or buy a house. We talk about climate change, but it's my generation that's going to have to deal with the consequences of climate change. A good leader doesn't step up when it's necessary, they step up when it's convenient. If you care about the city, vote to choose the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy Chuck. Barry Cunningham.
Okay, I take offense. My generation I know lots of seniors that can't pay rent, and I know lots of seniors that can't afford the food nowadays. So I think we're all in the same boat. But when all's said and done, the past council's done a hell of a job getting this town back on track, and it's up to you, the residents of Prince Rupert, to decide which ones represent you in the next 4 years to keep us on track. I think the track record speaks well for itself. I will continue to advocate for any and all causes that come before me. I'm not afraid to take the smallest thing from somebody's neighbor, giving them a rough time, to major things like housing and healthcare. I'm definitely out there. I'm approachable, and I will continue to be approachable. And I guess I am maybe the oldest person sitting here.
Thank you, Barry Cunningham. Terry Forster.
Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. It's really important to all of us, and I can only speak for myself, but I assume everybody else would be more than open to having further dialogue with all of you, because we didn't have enough time to really answer many of these questions. I'm running because I'm super excited about the 2030 plan, and I want to be a part of putting it into practice. I don't want it to be something that gathers dust on a shelf. I was excited by the vision of this council and by Mayor Brain, and I want to work with everyone to make sure it happens, because it's so exciting, and I hope everyone else is excited too. If you are, please vote for me, Terry Forster. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila Gordon-Payne.
Okay, thank you. So I just need to stand up for this last part, both out of respect to all of you and just to give things a good stretch here. It's been a long night. We're on the home stretch. So why me, Sheila Gordon-Payne? 4 reasons. The first thing is I have the experience, not only on council, but in previous work I've done. I'm used to working on teams and pulling people together in new ways. I've been directly responsible for a $32 million budget that has gone through bad times and good times. It's not new, and it's business. Second thing is, I'm a woman. If there were no men on council, I'd be speaking here to men, but there are no women, are no gender differences on council. So I would put forward that we already know the research that women on boards and leadership groups make things more effective, more efficient, and have better outcomes. I think we need all of those. The next thing is, I do draw from my role as a nurse in the community, where we see diversity and we see the strengths of our community and the weaknesses of our community. And I'm going to jump right through to the last thing before I get the hook. And why me? Because I choose to live here. I'm going to stay here. I can promise you I'll work my butt off. No bullshit.
Thank you for that. Wade Niche.
I feel I'm ready to serve another 4 years. I've always been available when people call me and willing to have a conversation anywhere, whether it's at a gathering of people or walking down the street. I have always answered people. I am always up for a conversation. I feel my experience and knowledge on all current city projects and problems is important to keep positively moving forward over the next 4 years. I have been part of the 2030 vision and OCP development and wish to keep moving forward to keep improving our city. My experience in construction will benefit you when discussing the rebuilding of our community. I will continue to push for housing of all kinds. I would love for your support on October 15th. There will be new faces on this council, but I feel that I am one of the incumbents you want to keep around for continuity. Thanks again. If you see me standing on the sidewalk at election time, feel free to stop by and have a conversation. And I'm like the middle. I'm like between Barry and Andy, so I kind of can relate with both sides. So I think that's the best.
Thank you very much. Gurvinder Randhawa.
In the different approaches and perspectives we have heard tonight, one thing is clear. Our city still has challenges. There are social challenges, there are economic challenges, there are housing challenges, there are challenges that come with having a lot of infrastructure that is difficult to maintain because our resources are limited. That's why I still feel strongly that my experience and skills are equal to task. That means attracting new sources of tax revenue, upgrading our city facility methodically and professionally. It means continue to develop partnerships with First Nations, the port, government, and our neighbors. As I have learned through my service to groups like Recreation Commission and the Small Business Advisory Committee, our city has the courage to try new ideas while working with common purpose. I dedicate myself to realizing plans that will achieve that purpose. My name is Gurvinder Randhawa, and I thank you and my fellow candidates for your attention this evening.
Thank you very much. And finally, Reed Skelton-Morbin.
Perfect, thank you. I think I can authenticate Sheila's statements and really speak to a vast majority of our senior staff are actually women, and I think for us and having more folks on council, something that's more diversified and representative of our community is important. Plus, leaving a bunch of men unattended is always dangerous. So I think it's definitely helpful to have those perspectives and again be more inclusive as a community. When we make the decision on October 15th, we really need to think about continuity and experience and keeping this momentum. For myself, having served the past 4 years and having put my name on the ballot at 24, sworn in at 25, although I look a little older from Grace, that's if Andy Chugg wasn't sure if there was a young member on council as well. It's definitely been a labor of love, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It's been a very fulfilling position for me, and I look forward to serving you for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of our candidates, and I saw a rebuttal go up, but we're going to stick with just our closing remarks now and thank everybody for a great evening of debate and the sharing of ideas. Thank you to all the candidates for sharing your passion and your ideas for our community tonight. And thank you to the audience as well, both here and at home watching online, for joining us tonight for this important discussion. Before you run away, I just want to give a couple more thank yous to the BC Northern Real Estate Board. They made tonight possible, as well as the Leicester Centre. Thank you very much for opening your doors and manning all these microphones, Chris Armstrong. Thanks as well, of course, to the Prince Rupert and District Chamber of Commerce for putting this event on and organizing it, and to our timekeeper, Daphne Thompson. Good job tonight. And to Alex Hogendorn of Fellowship Baptist Church for making this streaming possible, and to KJ Miller with the Northern View for acting as our panelists. So that's it. Good night. see you all on October 15th. Oh, sorry, you're wanting the microphone?
Yes, just from the Prince Rupert and District Chamber of Commerce. Also, thank you so much to Carolina for tonight. She has done a stellar job of moderating and keeping everyone on track. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So I'll see you all October 15th for the election, and thanks again, and talk to you dark and early tomorrow morning.